What up?
What's up, dude?
How you
How's
doing?
everything?
How's it
I'm good. How
going?
are you?
Good, man. Thanks for coming on a busy Friday, dude. Ow, shit. How's it going?
I'm good. I'm good.
Yeah?
Yeah.
You had a busy
Fridays
couple of
are.
weeks, haven't you?
Yeah, it's been a pretty busy couple weeks, but thank God all for good things. Um,
Yeah.
had a wedding in London that I went in and out for. I was probably on the ground for 36 hours, maybe. Um,
Nice.
yeah, and I don't know, just life's flashing by. It's going way too fast, but it's a
Tell
good
me,
thing.
tell
It's
me,
just a,
tell me, explain what makes you say that?
I don't know, it just feels like it's
Like
September. It's September
what?
13th already, and it just feels like the summer started yesterday. It just feels like weeks are just flying by. Everything like there's just so much going on, which is all for good things. It's just you know, before you know it, you're like the clock is like changing, and it's like wild. It's like it's midway
Yeah.
through September already, and it just feels like Labor Day was yesterday, but it was like, and August was a while like already in the rearview mirror, and it's just crazy. Before you know it,
It
it'll be
is, by the way.
cold and winter will be here. So
Well, then
it,
you'll be down here plenty, right?
I hope so.
I hope. Yeah, me too. Me too. Me too. I I definitely had that experience too. This summer, for sure. Um, do you think there's anything that could be done, or any ideas of what you could do, what we could do to kind of feel like things aren't like I've heard people say, describe as you get older, that life, the days are longer, but the time goes by faster, but the weeks are shorter, or the months are shorter, whatever. It's like the days themselves don't feel so long, but I feel like everything is just so fast, you know? What do you
Yeah, I
think?
just want to hit
Do
the
you
pause
have any ideas
button.
you could do?
Hit the pause button.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but you can't do that, obviously. I mean, you got to enjoy, like, be in the moment, enjoy the moment. But sometimes when you know, it's not like, I mean, at least for me, I'm not enjoying the moment. Like, I'm busy and I'm happy what I'm doing, and it's all good things. The only thing is that, like, you kind of just like you zoom out and you're like, oh my God, where's time? Where has time gone? And not that it's like that doesn't mean that you're not feeling productive and that you're not,
Yeah.
maximizing your. If anything, I feel like that it's the opposite. Like you are maximizing your time, right? Instead of, I think when you have nothing going on, that's when time actually crawls.
Yeah.
Versus when you have a lot going on, that's when time flies.
Yeah.
And I mean, the saying is time flies when you're having fun, but it's true. But
Yeah.
I feel like there's just nothing. I don't know. I don't know if there's, it's do a little bit less, have a lot more of a balance. I mean, it's just there's nothing you could do, right? You can't hit pause on life, so you got to
No,
just
you
keep going.
can't. No, you can't. Yeah. Last night I had a couple. We were trying to get a poker game together. We ended up getting like five or six guys throughout the night, but no one. But we didn't get up anyone to like consistently at the same time to get a game going, and everyone wasn't around
Right.
long enough to get a game going. So we all kind of hang around the backyard, and we were smoking. We had beers. We had cigars. Um, having a great time, and
Your backyard?
yeah, my new
Nice.
backyard, dude. Um, and and I was talking to a couple of the guys because the people I play poker with are a very, very eclectic crowd that I
Mm-hmm.
don't that I don't know how and in what other way I would have ever kind of been exposed to these people in my life. You know, um, just very diverse humans, very diverse age group. Leo, one of my buddies, is in
I
his
know
early
Leo.
20s. Yeah, he's in his early 20s, I think, right? He's a younger dude. And then
Yeah.
Ori is 35. He's an Israeli guy that, has been living in the States for a bunch of years. And Kiwi's 34, and I'm in between. I'm 20, I'm almost 29. Um, and everyone kind of seems to be saying the same thing. Like they just don't know where time is going. And so we're kind of like, I think a lot of really productive thoughts happen when you kind of give the thought or the idea or the conversation time to settle. And
What do you mean? Please elaborate.
When I think we have I think the human mind in general, like as fast as we are to process things, there's a lot of times where we need time to like kind of sit with a thought and like give our brain times to and give our brains time to go ahead and do it. Give me to give our
Yeah.
brains time, yeah, to give our brains time to go ahead and to just kind of sit with it and problem solve. And like the experience, like it's almost like the phenomenon if you try to ask someone like, "Oh, what's the name of that actor?" and like it's on the tip of your tongue and you can't get it, and then like you walk away and then it kind of hits you, right?
Yes.
You needed that moment of like stepping away for a second before you get the response, and before you get the answer. And so we were sitting there with that conversation, and we're just kind of talking and hanging out, and no one was really going anywhere, and we kind of just like throwing around this idea of how quick life goes, and then I recently had started doing 5 minutes. I try to do every day. I probably do six days a week, usually, but for the last week or two of just um, I think it's breath work or meditation. I'm not even sure what it's called. I was never, no one ever taught me anything about it.
Probably
I just sit.
meditation.
So what I do is I sit literally, I just sit still wherever I am. I'm at my desk, I'm at a couch, I'm at school, and I'm in between classes. And I just sit still. I put my phone down. I set a timer for 5 minutes, and I don't move a muscle in my body. I close my eyes, and I just breathe in for 5 seconds and breathe out for 5 seconds. And the
You think
time
that you think
slows
that
down.
you think that's help? Like you
Dude,
think that?
it's so helpful. Like I had a very stressful week. I was closing on the house. We're trying to figure out to move in. Should we get the exterminator this week or next week? My family's here the day after we moved in. We hosted the first 2 nights that we were here, and then my family came. We're running around trying to figure out what we need, what we don't need, what's a silly thing to buy before the house gets, before it gets poisoned essentially for the termites that we have. Um, like we're trying to figure out all these things, and then what plumbing we need, and we need a gate around the pool, and I'm dealing with all these people, and the AC, one of the AC is not working, and I'm just jumping from place to place, and I also am trying to make sales, and I'm also trying to teach and do my responsibility to these kids to be the best teacher that I
Hmm.
could be, or at least be prepared, and
And you feel like, yeah, hello.
yeah, and sitting for those 5 minutes and just breathing in and out. And then if I'm feeling good about it, and as the breath work goes, I may take 7 seconds breathe in and then breathing out, and then 10 seconds to breathe in and breathe out, and like literally just slowing everything down, and it allows me to process. And it just and I open my eyes, and like after 5 minutes or 7 minutes or 10 minutes, and I reset, and my head just feels like I just feel ready to keep on going and ready to tackle everything, and not even that, I and aside from even recharging, I'm mentally okay, now I'm ready to think of something fresh. I don't think that, and I think that we're living like our world is so fast paced, with texts that require immediate response and emails that require response. You're getting a call from a boss and a call from a customer and a call from a coworker, and I got to respond to this email while I'm doing that. And we're moving at 1,000 miles an hour, and I don't know that our brains have evolved to be functioning on that high a level that
With all that
consistently
information, you think?
for so
Would you?
long without a break. Yeah. And even what do you call downtime? Downtime is consuming. Downtime is consuming television. Downtime is consuming sports. Downtime is consuming podcasts and listening to music. Downtime isn't just ever just sitting, you know?
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah, I mean that's a good point. But I think that helps you. I mean, I've tried meditation and I've tried, um, and either, like I said, either I'm not doing it right or whatever. It just doesn't like.
it may not, I don't know if it resonates. Yeah, but the fun thing is to be able to, there's no such thing as a wrong thing if it works for you, right?
Correct.
So, so if you find a variation of it where it's not necessarily proper meditation per se, but you just find your way of just like I think just slowing down. And I think that the phone that's attached to our hips and to our hands and glued to our face, and I'm compulsive. I'm a full blown phone addict,
Hmm.
right? And I know that, I mean, I get my once a week 25-hour reset, which thank God for, because I don't know what I would do without it, right? But but I definitely feel trapped by it. Like if I stop and I put my phone down, I go for a walk, or I put my phone away, and I started to be more conscious about just not having my phone on me
Yeah,
at night.
that's why I'm. Yeah, I
After
think it's not to interrupt you, but I think it's super important. I mean, I saw the 25 hours that we get a week because we're Sabbath observers that we don't use our phones. Um, I think like, I mean, I don't know if I don't think practically you could do this, but like it's so helpful to like just disconnect for you know more than a couple of days at a time, where you just literally have like no access to phone. Right? That's like, I think that like, I know there was a point where I was like out camping for a week and I had no contact with the outside world. The world literally could have ended. Could have come back. The world could have been upside down. Could have been another, God forbid, 9/11. It could have been anything, and you would have no idea.
right.
Like, you would have had no idea. You just lived in your own world. But it was so nice just to like disconnect. Um, but in terms of like going back to kind of what we were saying, in terms of slowing it down, yeah, I think meditation or any of that form, can you just like, okay, like take a break and just like stop moving for a second, um, and
Yeah.
stop consuming. That's awesome and that's good. I don't think that will. I think it's just more to appreciate the time that you're in. I don't think it's obviously going to slow down the time, right? I don't think that actually is like physically really
Well, it's
possible.
not like it's not. Yeah. Well, I'm not
Well,
talking about
obviously
well,
physically, but like
all of
mentally.
this, all of this is all a perception of how time passes, and our perception of how much control we have or how little control we have over the passing of time, and then feeling like we're not even aware of how it goes. Like I think that's really the root of a lot of, like, you can, like, because you can have the most productive week of your life, or the productive day of your life, and then you could still not necessarily feel at peace with it, or at home with it. By the way, I just saw a raccoon crawl up a massive tree in my backyard, and now it's just gone, and I'm a little nervous. I don't know where it's gonna pop out from, but and it's a big raccoon, dude. It's the size of like
It's like,
a small dog or a
yeah, it's like
cat. It's
Seattle.
crazy. Yeah, dude. Um, but so anyway, so when I put my phone down at night, right, and let's say I call 8 o'clock, because I think 8 o'clock or 8:30 is a pretty reasonable cutoff, because that's really, even West Coast, I pretty much stop getting calls around then, or it becomes more acceptable to call back in the morning
Hmm.
at that point. Um, and it's not that I don't check my phone; it's that it's not in my pocket, right? It's not like on me. So let's say I just leave it like on the kitchen table, or like on the couch in the in the living room charging. And if I'm sitting down next to it, I'll check it. If I'm going up to get a snack with my wife, or I'm going up to, if my baby wakes up, I have to change his diaper, I get up, or if I'm going to take a shower, or go for a little walk, I don't need to take it with me. Like it's just not like, it's not on me, and that has it's first of all, I realized two things. I realized, A, that could solve a lot of these problems. B, I really am addicted to my phone, and I'm like a slave to being stimulated by what the phone has to offer.
Hmm.
There's so much I want to do, and I feel like the secret to all of it is on my phone. I want to be social. I gotta stay in touch with my friends. I gotta have a meaningful relationship. I gotta speak to my parents and my family, and my close friends. I wanna make money. I gotta be on my phone to make sales. I want to do a podcast. I'm recording on my phone, and I'm trying to find guests. I'm trying to make things happen, right? And so like this thing is like holding the key to like my well-being, and I feel, and so I'm always just like, I'm always looking to it to provide, and I know that I'm doing the work, and it wouldn't happen without my effort, and it wouldn't happen without my energy, but it's pretty much my key to any kind of real success in a lot of my life. you know.
Is your phone.
Um, yeah, definitely, and I'm enslaved by it. I
I mean,
know
I don't
I
think
am,
anybody.
I'm just,
I mean, there. I mean, sure there are people, so I don't want to blanket statement that, but it's most people are right. Most people are. I'm sure if they did studies down, in 30 years from now, you could see like the actual probably physical. I don't know if there's any research behind this, but like people's like maybe their necks or their spines are like shaped differently because they're just constantly looking down at a phone or at a screen versus like standing
yeah.
upright, right? I mean, people are more hunched over now than normal because of that, right? Posture is not as good. Um,
Well, because people also don't exercise, by the way.
yeah, but yeah, that's true.
That's a huge thing. That's a huge thing.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's
Um,
not. I mean, our
I mean,
society,
we do.
I think it depends on where you fall in the world and like which society, which part of society you live in terms of like geographically. I think also that has a big effect. Like if your culture that you're in is a fitter culture, then you're going to. But like us in America, we're the probably the right.
We're
We're
not
not
fit.
bad. We're the obese country. Like
We're the unhealthiest. We're the unhealthiest. We're among and probably the unhealthiest country on the planet, if not,
do you
top
think that
few. And chronic
do you think that has
diseases
to do
and
with all the freedoms that we have?
yeah.
I think there's a direct correlation between the two.
Well, the problem is, so I don't think that it's a great question. It's not the freedom per se, right? I'm not going to say that it's the freedom that we have. I think that I was actually talking to my students about this recently because we were reading, because I was introducing them to the book The Anxious Generation about phones and social media and stuff like that. And I said it's not people's fault for them doing this. I was like, I was like, on one hand, you have these enormous corporations who exclusively benefit and profit from having the most amount of people most amount of individuals being addicted to their product, right? And this could be food, this could be social media, this could be, alcohol, this could be cigarettes, this could be whatever it is, right? It could be vaping, whatever you want to call it, um, whatever application it is. But these enormous corporations are hiring the best minds and the biggest teams and the best psychologists and the best marketers and the best company, the best everyone to pummel the individual with so much that it's like me or you walking into a UFC fight, with anyone and just being like, well, here goes, like you have such a little chance of winning, right? So I don't think it's the freedom that America has to offer that's the problem. I think the problem is that that the individuals in America are unequipped and the education is not up to where it could be, where um, where we're in a position to defend ourselves freely. I don't think most people are free to actually make even realize that they're being attacked from all sides, from all these companies, and all these enormous institutions that that really try to pressure us into whatever it is. Our association with beer and football, the fact that we need that we mindlessly just open Instagram or Twitter every single time that we're on our phone, when we're with people in public, like, yeah, of course it's not good, but do you know how much effort and millions and millions, hundreds of millions of dollars went into putting us into that mindset, designing the app to be that way, creating this content and the algorithms for doom
So
scrolling
you're
or
saying
for you
you're like set
content
up,
and
you're set up to fail almost in a way because unless or you're fighting an uphill battle because because of the money and everything that's pumped into it. Wow, we sound super liberal right now.
but it's not even the money. It's not even the money. No, well, we first of all, I don't think it's a liberal thing because I don't think like liberal would just like if you just think about the definitions of the terminology, I mean, I don't know if this is liberal or conservative. It's just a matter of is Ephraim Hirschman, is Zack Alexander, is Avami Kroll, are we are we really are we really, and I'm not going to say that we're not free, but are we equipped to handle the challenges that America and the land of opportunity has. The challenge used to be, you got to work. The challenge used to be is very interesting. It used to be almost like a capitalistic challenge where you have companies that are hiring people, and and you essentially just had to work to be able to provide for your family and give them a house and put food on the table and move on,
Hmm.
right? And and you're kind of at the and you're and if you and if you were and you physically did not have a lot of control over your life. You had to be in a particular job in a particular location at a particular place several hours a day with X amount of vacation time and X amount of off days, and if not, then someone else would do it, and someone else would do it for the same amount of money, for cheaper, for whatever it is, right? And so you had to go ahead, and so what you had was you had the work hard mentality, but you had a direct correlation to the reward and the benefits of this hard work, which was you lived a meaningful, happy life with your family. You guys would interact with each other. You guys would play together, and you guys would do things together. And then and so like you almost had like even though you had to sacrifice physical physical freedom to be able to pursue the emotionally and human and human aspects of your life, family and community and friends and whatever. Now I think the human side of us is actually even more under attack. The human side of us is the attack on our attention, the attack on our free time, the attack on our ability to be mentally and emotionally healthy and to know what it is that we're looking, to even not be distracted long enough to even decide what it is that we want with our lives and and what we want to be and who we want to be.
Right.
All of that is under attack because that's now commoditized, and that and I mean, listen, there's no question that think about just these companies, right? Forget about if you just think about the food companies, the big food companies that make food, the awful food that actually I didn't want to go down that rabbit hole. Forget about food. Okay, forget about food for a minute, right? Just your attention, just like who Zach is, who I am, how we spend our time, and what our relationships and what our emotional and mental health is like. You have Netflix, you have YouTube, you have Google, you have Apple, you have Meta, you have TikTok, you have X, you have Twitter, right? Now imagine all the resources that these companies have, and all these people, and all these companies, they are compensated based on how much time we spend on their apps, right? So, for example, Netflix started their ad tier not because they thought it was a good idea, but because at a certain point they hit the roof on how many subscribers they were realistically going to get, and they needed another growth model in business. So they went to the advertiser and they said, "Listen, we have more people viewing our content than any other standard streaming platform. And YouTube still wins
Yeah,
by far. But let's
YouTube's
just say,
blown to
in
blows
terms of
everybody out of the
like,
water, I feel like.
right. And Matt Bellany
Yeah.
talks a lot about that. He mentioned it a bunch. Um, but then you have so then Netflix says to advertisers, listen, we know not only are you going to get a certain amount of millions of eyeballs, watching your commercials, but I know that Zach loves hockey documentaries, and I know that Ephraim loves, sports, loves Game of Thrones and Peaky Blinders and mafia movies, and so we not only do we have millions of eyes, but we also have the most direct and high quality leads for you guys to invest in us,
Hmm.
right? And that's essentially, and I pay for the same thing too, by the way. When I have my Google Ads running, and someone calls me and goes, I mean, I've gotten calls from 80, 90-year-old women looking for a used wheelchair or like, like a shower rack to for them to hang on to. I call my Google Ads guy. I'm like, listen, I don't know how they found me, but I paid money for this person to click on my advertisement, and it has nothing to do with my business. It has nothing to do with the product that I offer, and I don't find this a good use of my money. So he goes ahead and he removes words like wheelchair or showers from the ads that I could pop up in, right? You want to be as specified as possible.
Right.
You know,
And
Tell me who has more specific information on any single human being on this planet than Google. Tell me who has more specific information than Netflix or than Disney Plus or than TikTok. Tell me who knows more about yourself than anyone on this planet except for these companies.
They
You
do.
know,
Yeah.
so now we're fighting. They know more than your
Yeah, of
parents
course.
do,
Of
for God's
course.
sake. They know more than my spouse knows. Because even the subconscious things, even the things that like I didn't even I'm just scrolling and it just like I stop for a minute because it catches my attention. I might not even process that it caught my attention. They know that it caught my attention. They know that I stopped on that link for a half a second because that something about that video caught my eye, and they said, okay, well, this has X percent success rate with a prime. Let's give them a couple more of those and see whether it keeps up, whether it works or not. And then it feeds the way into your algorithm. But I didn't know that about myself. My wife didn't know this about me. No one knew this about me. My parents didn't know this about me. So and now tell me how when I'm now these guys who are combining content with personalized content for each individual. How's that? How are most people that don't even know this problem exists supposed to live well balanced lives
It's,
or
I mean,
meaningful
it's
lives?
very difficult. It's hard. I mean, I think that just comes down to like kind of self-discipline and the other aspects of life. And I
Right. We need more, but we need more tools. We need more tools. It's not just it's because you can try to be disciplined, but when have we ever been tested to this level with it? But to this
I
extremely.
mean, if you look at let's say like the ultra Orthodox Jewish community, I mean, they have their own other
Yeah.
issues, but they also don't. You know, they just cut it off, right? Their response to it is just no access.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
not saying
And
that that's a solution,
yeah.
but that
And
is
by the
a
way,
solution.
yeah. And by the way, yeah. And it does have by the way, in teaching I would call it on a scale from 1 to 10, probably like an 8, ultra Orthodox school as far as, religious observance goes. As but in teaching in one of those schools, I I do I notice an enormous difference in the teenagers. It's crazy, the
In a good
teenagers.
way, you're saying?
These
Or
kids in such a great way, dude. Like I don't feel like I'm teaching in a classroom in 2024. I really feel like I'm teaching in a classroom in the early 2000s or in the mid 90s. And not because of and not because the kids are living under a rock, but because they have all the healthy social and mental development that comes with avoiding a lot of this stuff, that comes with not having access to this stuff. And I mean, at this point, there's it's pretty much established without any kind of argument, that that anyone under the age of 16 should not be using social media. Like it's just too damaging. The brain is in the middle of developing. It's not established. It's not completely developed and grown yet, and it's being rewired and taken over by things like short span videos, like a lot of adult content that's not appropriate for children that are under that age, that they get exposed to, and that really, I mean, there's countless research that's being done right now about all the impacts that this is having on people. And then, yeah, you say, well, we live in a free world, in a free society, and there's the price of freedom,
mm,
but I mean, we're not that free. We still have rules, and we still also believe that freedom does not necessarily apply when it comes to the health and safety of others, right? So Facebook could say, well, I can't control anyone who uses our app. Well, you could say, yeah, well, that's like saying I can't control.
it's like
Um,
it's like the common thing, like, oh, the intentions are good, but like, when somebody does something wrong, let's say, and they don't do something the right way, oh, but they had good intentions, like they meant well. What do you mean? So they could rob a bank? They
or
could
not
rob
even,
a bank. They
yeah,
meant well, so but they could rob a bank. Like that's just doesn't that. Yeah, okay, intentions are important, but at the end of the day, it's the end result. And so,
or you can even say that the harm that these kids are experiencing will cause them to become harmful to others in society. right? Aside from themselves, even. And I don't know if this is 100%. I don't. This is just speculation. I'm just thinking out loud over here, right? But I mean, it used to be, by the way, and like just to, this for this metaphor, if you used to go to a bar and you used to have a couple of drinks, the bartender would take your keys away at a certain point if he, before he gave you that next drink. He would exchange. He'd say, "Listen, I'll give you another drink. I need your car key
You're not
because,"
driving home.
and and you're not driving home. Yeah, and whether this guy's being altruistic or whether because they don't want to get sued up their ass. I understand. It doesn't make a difference. The point is that because if one person, if one guy leaves this establishment and drunk drives his way home and kills a family of four along the way, it's the bar's responsibility, right? If kids are if people are hurt, if people are behaving in ways that damage other people as a result of not having any kind of control over their own emotional state that caused them to lash out, in their lives against other people and hurt other people, then you got to do something about it. There's got to be some kind of responsibility because we're free until it comes to harming other people. That's why you can't yell fire in a crowded
Right.
theater. That's why you can't yell gun in a movie, while you're at the movies. Or like, see, he's got, I mean, actually, did you see that video when Matt Rife did that?
No, he did that.
Dude, Matt Rife at his show, I saw it, I think it was either Twitter or Instagram. Dude, he yelled, "He's got a gun,"
Oh my God.
in in the middle of one of his while he was doing one of his crowd work sets, and you could see in his eyes, it was an enormous oh shit moment where he was like, the second it came out of his mouth, like, nope, nope, kidding, 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 just a joke, just a joke. But dude, that's where free speech ends. Like where you do something that immediately puts other people in danger.
Yeah.
That so I don't know that a freedom argument, if you really were to scrutinize it, would really hold up for all these companies doing these kind of things. And just capturing our mental and emotional state and just monetizing it essentially. Um, but I think they should be responsible, and I think that in 10 years or 20 years, or if we're able to make our way out of it, and if we're not captured enough um, by general um, corporate greed and interest or money, and if we're able to actually hold people responsible for their actions, we're going to look back in 20 years and be like, this was like a test generation to see whether, you know, freedom extends to here, and this was a good idea to provide to allow kids that are between the age of 8 and 16 to be using these platforms, and we're going to be like, I cannot fucking believe that we let that happen. Like, I
You
can't
think you
believe that
think
we
there's you
hurt
think
that
there's
many
going to be
people.
actual reflection moment? You think so? I don't think so.
Yeah, well, so I think that the only way that there will be
If there's
is
some
if
massive,
there has to be a blowback, and there has to be a retreat, right? And in a real democracy, and in a really free place, if you really believe in freedom, and what's fair is fair and what's right is right, and anyone could do anything, as long as they have the better argument, the higher ethic, the higher, whatever it might be. um if you really believe that, and America is really that place, then I think we will see it. And if this information gets stifled, then it won't. But even the fact that these podcasts are coming out and these books are being written and this research is being done about this gives me a lot of hope. Just that someone will ultimately be, I mean, at a certain point, there is going to be someone that makes his way through the bureaucracy, and then we'll have tangible evidence in books, in podcasts, in research, incredible, from the most credible places to street research, whatever it may be, to be able to point to anything and just be like, to point to all of them and say, listen, they have to be responsible, and then whether these companies won't voluntarily
no.
give it up, but hopefully if we have a government that's fair, then the government will outlaw it, or create new regulations, and and then we'll look back a couple of years after that, 5, 10, 15 years after that, and we'll see how the world kind of reverts and it'll be like, oh my God, I can't believe we even tried that. I can't believe we allowed that to go on for so long. And it'll be embarrassing. Listen, we're embarrassed about a lot of things that happened even 10 years ago in our country. And not embarrassed in like I can't believe I'm an American, but like, yeah, we got that wrong and we got to be better next time, right? I think that this could very well be one of those things. And I think that, once we do, can you imagine how productive human beings could be if you had all the potential of social media, not social, of technology, all the potential of technology, and healthy human beings. Like right now, we have amazing technology, and I think a very unhealthy world. Unhealthily physically, unhealthy mentally, unhealthy just emotionally, and without a sense of purpose for a lot of people. And we're always kind of looking for a sense of purpose. But can you imagine if we weren't just being captured and overrun by, like, again, on all fronts by all these companies? I think that it would. I mean,
Um,
maybe it's too optimistic, but
I mean, I think I agree. I think it would be awesome, but you don't think that's like a little bit too like utopian in a way?
you know what? I it could be.
I mean, it's an amazing outlook to have, and I don't want.
I
It's an amazing outlook, right? So it's like that's the
the
ideal.
reason why I think it's possible.
Yeah.
I think the reason why I think it's possible now, today, more than I did even 3 months ago, um, is because I think that on the political spectrum, um, people went from being left and right to being establishment and anti-establishment, right? And anti-establishment, which represents the individuals and the safety of the individuals, and the freedom of the people to express themselves, and the freedom of people to kind of like, the anti-establishment is American values at its core, right? And what you're trying to do is try to navigate, how do we have an establishment, how do we live the best lives without giving up our without giving up our lives? How do we live a good life without sacrificing everything, right? And that's a really, really hard really hard balance to
Yeah,
find.
that's very
Um,
difficult.
and that's why it was so brilliant that we change presidencies every 4 years, and that's why it's so brilliant that we vote random people, a variety of people in, and I think that to see RFK and Trump, who were going at each other 2 months ago, come together just for the sake of trying to help people out, and to see Tulsi Gabbard, who is a lifelong Democrat, join the endorse Trump, not for the sake of Trump, and that's what they're all saying in common. Like, we're not Trump, we're not working with Trump because Trump is this hero that everyone's blindly dedicated to, and that's what we're going to do. It's just like, if like we just see that, like, we're not happy with the state of affairs now. We're allowed to say we're unhappy with the state of affairs now, and we want it to be better for the future. And the fact that it's a unity party, the fact that it's people from historically all ends of the spectrum that only within the last year or two are deciding, you know what, maybe I will, for the sake of all the values of everything that I've represented my entire life, I'm going to go this way. That gives me enough hope that people are going to be okay with, that if Trump is able to win the election, it's not Trump that I want to win the election. It's the unity that he represents that I want to win the election right
Right.
now. You know, and so if they're able to win, to me, RFK has been suing enormous regulatory agencies for years. For me, Elon Musk it represents sawing off all the bullshit fat that's on any company, that's on companies, and typical ways of thinking and processes. He's going to be part of that. To me, Tulsi Gabbard, who was a veteran and a medic, and someone and part of a very small independent state, Hawaii,
Mm-hmm.
before, just like, and to have her perspective and experience representing, both from a military perspective, like, listen, I was in war. Is this what we want? Let's be measured and think about this. And you're coming at it from firsthand experience. I'm a medic. I'm seeing what the consequences are. It makes like, you have people that are really, really experienced in doing the really, really important things in life. and the really important things that we need as I think to be healthy, to be people. I don't want this to be like, political. I think it's just a human thing. I think I really think that it's not representing of left and right. And I bet that if they win, within the next couple of years, it'll be establishment against anti-establishment. And then if that continued to win, then it'll go back to being, left and right. And then, Republican and Democrat, and you kind of, but right now we're almost like back at the roots again of like why we initially almost became our own country to begin with. Like we're sick of corporate capture. We're sick
Yeah, but I think
of,
we're also why we became
the
that
go.
our own country. But I think some like people in this country don't like. There is the fraction that don't like this country that are trying to fight for something to live up to models of other countries, not our own.
Maybe, maybe. And by the way, that's not necessarily even such a bad thing because part of what makes our country is the fact that when you walk through, like, if the fact, like, when I walked into, I have to take you when you come, hopefully, to this place called the Fields. It's this Irish pub. It really, really, really feels like you're in a really cool place in Dublin. Like it's just got that entire vibe, and I haven't seen any kind of building or any kind of establishment in South Florida, like just even in terms of the aesthetics of the place, it doesn't. Nothing comes even close to what to anywhere else I've ever been to in South Florida. That's like the Irish representation. There's a cool kava bar that I go to that sells kava and kraton, and it's this hippie artsy place that's kind of like almost like Caribbean type of themed. And that, and you have that establishment. And then you have the, good old American breweries, and like, I don't think it's necessarily a problem to not quote unquote be American. It's just to, it's just to have the right, to have the values of, I want to live the best life and I want you to live your best life. And how do we work together to make that
Right.
happen? That's kind of that's kind of where things have started to diverge a little bit, where we're not even necessarily wishing well on our neighbors. We don't trust our neighbors anymore. We don't look at each other like we're human, like, human beings we could trust. And that if you're in the street and someone says, hey to you, you turn around, you immediately think they're a threat before you think that they could potentially be an ally, or they're just telling you, hey, you dropped your headphones, or hey, something, you left your bag here or something like that,
Hmm.
So, so I think that we have to restore. Yeah, I think we need. But yeah. And yeah, there are people that don't see this, and there are people that don't agree with it, and that's fine. And I really don't mind, and everyone's entitled to their own perspective. But I do think that as time goes on, it's becoming more and more clear that people that are pretending to be for the people are not as much, and the people that and then and so a lot of people are reconsidering, and a lot of people are just rethinking, like, I never would have said this. That's all, the other problem with Trump being with running, I think, because I think there's so many people that would have voted for any other candidate except for him. You have like the never Trumpers,
Right.
like I don't look at Trump when I'm voting. I'm looking at who's with him, and
Yeah,
who
but
and who's working with
you're
him.
in
Because
the
at the end of the day,
massive minority in that. You know that. Like
yeah,
the
I understand.
massive.
That's why it's upsetting. That's why it's upsetting that it's Trump that's running as opposed to literally anyone else, because he already has such a strong stigma and such a strong association, and who he is, just his name sets people off. Like, I don't know anyone else that is socially more, I don't know another name that people are more that has more of a social risk or reward
Mhm.
than naming Donald Trump in public, right? If you're in a bar and you just say the name Donald Trump, watch how quickly and how vehemently people will start responding one way or the other. They love him, hate him. Very few people are like, I don't really know, I don't know what I think about that guy.
Yeah.
Like, who does that, right? If you say Tulsi Gabbard, people are like, I don't know who she is, but
Yeah.
sounds cool, whatever. But so I think the problem is that he already has such a strong association that actually might be able to that might actually hurt him. Did you watch the debate?
Some of it. Some of it. I mean, she best baited him, and he took the bait. Like,
Oh
yeah,
yeah,
which was
yeah,
like a shame.
yeah,
And like I said, like I'm not the biggest Trumper there. Like obviously, same thing. Like would rather another candidate, but I agree with the values of, the Conservative Party, so I'm gonna vote that. But at the end of the day, I don't think they're gonna win. I think this was,
You don't think so?
no,
You think come November, you think that Kamala Harris is going to be the
yeah,
president? Wow,
yeah.
that thought has not really seriously crossed my
Oh,
mind
start thinking it because it's probably gonna
for
be
some
true.
reason. You
Yeah,
think so? You think after the debate
yeah. I
more
think even
so?
more so. But I even thought before the debate, she just has to do nothing and win. Like if she doesn't open her mouth, she probably will win. Because again, the same thing.
Well, what gives
Why
you
get?
that
Because
feeling?
you have Trumpers for life, which are going to be Trumpers no matter what. Then
Yeah,
you had people that were, you know, maybe not voting. You had people that were on the fence of voting versus not voting because of Biden that were Democrats, and you even had some Democrats that
right.
would even move over because they'd be like, "How the heck can we have this candidate that is gonna, that's not really fit to rule?" Um, and
Well, yeah.
and or whatever. To some would say, right? I'm not saying that he isn't, but I'm also. And then you also that so
No, I personally don't think so. I mean, I think like I said, if he was my family, I would say, listen, I love you, I respect you, and I want the best for you, and obviously the best for someone your age is not the most stressful job on the
yeah.
planet. Like I think that I don't think that's like a bad thing to say. Especially physically and mentally.
Yeah, so I think, and then so I think now that party, that group of people that were on the fence, either not voting or voting, are now just going to vote for Kamala because it's just, it's somebody that's not Trump. So you kind of had the same mentality when it came to Biden. Um, people want when Biden originally got elected, it was because they just didn't want another Trump. So
And well, yeah, yeah, that's probably the case. Yeah, but so now the other thing I want to ask you in direct conjunction with this or directly correlated to this is
yeah,
you and I think this, um, or you think I presume that you think this because of the news that you read, right? About Trump not winning the election or not likely winning
yeah.
the election, right? Because you probably saw it on some kind of form of corporate news, right?
Yeah. Also, just like trying to figure a little logical assumption. Also, most of the country is like Republican, but the city centers are Democrat, and
Yeah,
those
yeah,
usually swing the
sure.
election anyways. So
Hmm.
yeah,
So the reason why I'm not convinced is not because of what people think or don't think. The reason I'm not convinced is because mainstream corporate media is so far from being authoritative or accurate that it's essentially just a smokescreen, right? And like on any given, let's say, night of Fox or CNN or MSNBC or even reading the Wall Street Journal, right? Even like, Wall Street Journal, which I think is considered as far as moderate as you can
yeah,
really get,
yeah.
right? In terms of news, um, they get a fraction of the daily viewership that alternative media like podcasts and like social media like Twitter and TikTok and Instagram, they got a fraction of the people consuming that product, right? So let's say Fox has a couple 100,000 views, and the average viewer is above the age of 65,
Hmm.
right? And then you get a poll in from Fox that says, "Wow, well, our viewers say that it's a neck and neck race of 50%, or Trump's up 60-40, or Kamala's up 40-60, 60-42, whatever it may be, right?" But the numbers that they're pulling from are so far from relevant because the pool that they're drawing information from is just so much smaller than the other pools that aren't talking about it, right? Facebook's not Meta's as an organization is not going to come out with a Meta poll and say that more people are viewing Trump, content than they are Kamala Harris content, and Twitter might. Um, and you could say what you're going to say. People say that Twitter is, primarily right leaning. I don't know that I believe that because again, it's coming from the same
Right. Yeah.
people that get 200,000 viewers a day. So like, I mean, sure, if your 200,000 viewers think that, but 200,000 people is nothing compared to the demographic of 35 and younger,
Hmm.
right? So like, I'm not convinced that these that the mood that the media is conveying, that the mainstream media is conveying, is at all in line with reality. You know, and even just in like, and it could be, and maybe I'm only noticing it for the first time, and you could tell me what you think. Um, I was in Costco, and then I noticed a lot of healthy options of food, a lot of organic food, a lot of
Yeah.
non-hormone,
Non-GMO. Yeah.
non-hormone given, meat, whatever it is, right? And it's Costco, so it's going to be very cost effective, right? And people are buying this stuff, and not even this stuff. It's not like people are specifically looking for it. It's just that overall, when people are shopping in Costco, they tend to be consuming what is what this healthier food, or what I've seen, and I go to Costco twice a week, because it's my favorite place. Um, and I see people, and people are checking out that trend, that Costco clearly picked up on. Costco's not getting healthy food out of the goodness of their heart, and they're not deciding like, what, we as a company decided that we're going to make less money and make more cheap, healthy products available for everyone. They're not doing that, right? Like they're a business just like anyone else, and they'll go with whatever market trends that are existing. You know, I think the fact that most that the snacks that you're buying are all advertised as healthier, that a lot of these snacks are keto friendly, they're gluten free, they're vegan, and while it might be a kitschy catchy thing, it shows that people care, that enough people care, to enough regular everyday people that shop at Costco, enough people care to be healthy that they have to fill their stock and their inventory with the food that reflects what people want to buy,
Yeah.
you know? But you don't hear Hershey's talking about that as a company. You don't hear you don't hear Dunkin' Donuts talking about that. But that might be the case,
Right.
right? And you're never going to know it unless you kind of notice these trends. So I don't. So I think that there's. I hope. I really, really hope, and I really think that there's been an upward. I think that the mood of the average person in the country is probably a lot better than what most people think, and I think that people's opinions and perspectives are very different than what the quote unquote authoritative media and authoritative establishments will tell you. And you're never going to know it until something like a vote happens,
Yeah.
right? Just like the way that Trump won in 2016, that you weren't
Right.
really expecting, and the truth is, I wasn't expecting Biden to win in 2020, and I must have been wrong, and I must have quote unquote read the room wrong. But the thing, so I think that right now the establishments that have historically been authority to America and to the world are on their last legs, and they're kind of just like spewing out whatever they can while they can, as like a Hail
Right.
Mary. But I think that if come 2 months from now, if the results of the elections are what they are, or let's say that Trump wins by a larger margin than we'd expect, or wins at all, then that means that everything they were saying was not
Correct.
accurate, and so people are going to rely on them even less and
Hmm.
less.
Yeah. I mean, it's all valid points. It's just at the end of the day, you kind of just have to wait and see what happens. But um, going back, I guess that kind of circles
Yeah,
back to our
yeah,
original point is about like when anything trends with this, it all has to do with time and time. Time will fly by and we'll get there. It might feel like forever, but we could get there tomorrow, or we could get there. We might never ever get
you
there.
can. Can you believe it's been 8 years since Trump first announced, or maybe even 9 years since he first announced that he was running for president? Can you believe it was 9 years
No,
ago?
insane.
It was 2015. We were, dude, 9 years ago, you were 20, 20,
9 years ago, I was
21,
20.
20?
Yeah, I was 20.
You were 20, dude.
Yeah,
You think about how different everything is and how quickly
sitting
it
in Hayes,
happened.
drinking beers and watching the debates with me, you, Ben, Chaim Engelman, and like random people. Yeah.
Oh, I have to text him. I have to text him. Yeah, dude. So, so I want, can you tell me about London? Or about traveling. You did Colorado and London, and I want to hear what your thoughts are.
Yeah. Then I'm gonna have to hop off soon, actually. But my, I mean, London was just quick in and out. I was there for a wedding for one of my good friends from growing up that I've known since kindergarten.
You've been there
Yeah, I've been to
before.
London before. So, this was my second time in London.
Okay.
So I didn't really like. I just hung out with friends that day that were there and did just kind of walked around. Um, so like didn't really. I mean, I took off at 9 a.m. New York time on a.m. on Sunday. Landed there around like 9 p.m. Got to my hotel about midnight. Went to sleep. Woke up at like 8. Met up with two friends. Walked around.
What are the hotels like? Are they are they westernized like nicer hotels? Or are they like Ireland?
Um, The hotel that I stayed at was very nice, but it was not westernized. It was a very European. It was a single room. It was for one person. Like the room was a legit single room, single bed, no bathroom, no door on the bathroom. Kind of just yeah, just like a
Really?
little closet, a bed, a nightstand, a little desk, and then a bathroom, and that was it. So it was
Wow.
meant for like business trips, quicks in and outs. It was pretty much in the heart of the city center, so it was a great location. It was about 10 minutes on the tube to where the wedding was, and it was about an hour from to the airport, which is pretty standard for London. Like Heathrow is pretty far, so you could take the tube, but it's just pretty far. So I
Okay.
stayed on the same line that the wedding was on, and where the and on the same line that I would have to take the train to so it was good. The hotel, the wedding actually took place in the in King by the St. Pancras, which is the hotel next to King Cross Station, where platform 9 3/4 is. So if you know Harry Potter, the hotel is actually you see it in the second movie. Actually, I think you see it a couple times. It shows up, but it's in the second movie when they can't go through the portal because Dobby closes it because he doesn't want Harry Potter to go to Hogwarts.
Yeah.
So him and Ron take the flying blue car and they pick it up literally right where the wedding was. It's right at that hotel. Um, so yeah, it was a beautiful venue. Wedding was structured very differently than your typical standard Jewish wedding here. Not very differently, just different. So just different order, different structure, but it was really nice. Everybody stayed for the whole thing. And a lot of whiskey. They love whiskey and Pimm's, which is like another alcoholic beverage.
Is it good?
The whiskey was great there, and so
Wait, what's
Pimm's is just
Pimm's?
another. It's like a liqueur.
Is it
No, it's a
gin?
liqueur. So it's like a 35%, and you usually mix it with like fruit and stuff. So it's like a sangria, but it's liquor based instead of wine based. Yeah,
Right.
it's a good. I mean, Pimm's itself is a liqueur, I think, but you don't like shoot it. You kind of just like you mix it. It's a mixing liqueur. Um,
But it's not, liqueurs aren't usually that strong. 35% is pretty high
yeah,
for a liqueur, right?
it's like it's not. I don't really know.
I think the flavored Smirnoffs are the flavored Smirnoffs are
Yeah.
35%.
Um, and so yeah, and that was good. And then I was in Colorado a week before that. Um, just traveling with friends.
Dude, you formally joined the
Yeah,
Deadhead
I know.
community.
Also, I formerly would love to live, not formally, but I so get why people live in Colorado. Like, I feel like it would be,
Oh yeah,
yeah, I would love it.
you
Oh,
loved it.
loved it. Um,
What about
I
it?
mean, I just like the whole culture is based around like activities and outdoor activities. So, in the winter it's skiing and snowboarding. In the summer it's hiking, backpacking, fishing, um, you know, um, just being outside. So it's just like a nice culture. Like it's just what I enjoy at, like it's my enjoyment. So yeah, like why
Yeah.
not live in a place
I
where,
noticed that about the state of Washington too.
yeah, it's just similar. I mean, I'm sure there's more states in Colorado that are like that, but they're just their culture is centered around, you know, activities and being outside and enjoying nature. And, that's what I like. I'm not or I mean, I live in Manhattan, but I'm not an urban person. Like people love urban life. I don't. Like it's just so fresh to be out by the mountains and everything. So, um, so that was just awesome just to be there. Again, being on vacation versus living there is different, but everybody like seemed very like all the locals that we spoke with like love it there, especially the smaller towns outside of maybe Denver. So, and that's where we were. We weren't really in Denver based. We were
Yeah,
outside.
for
We were
sure.
3.5 hours from Denver, northwest. So we were like north.
What did you? So tell me about the Grateful Dead concert though.
Um,
Before you have to
the
go, because I want to get your I want to get your experience. So someone told you that the Grateful Dead cover band was playing,
Yeah,
right? Where was it? At a
it was
brewery
next to a bowling
or a bar?
alley. It was in an outdoor concert venue
Okay,
next to a bowling alley. So there's this bowling alley, and then
okay.
there's like a little stage that they set up outside, and there's like a little like grass, like fake grass area, and that's where the concert was. But everybody goes, like the whole community goes every Wednesday night in the summer. They have an outdoor music concert, and this band has plays a couple of times, but it's other depending on like when it is, and we just happened to be there when it was a Grateful Dead cover band, and they were phenomenal. I mean, it's just a great vibe. Everybody's just very chill. It's just like it's not like you're like okay, like going hardcore, like just like oons, 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 and it's not just like listening to, let's say, a Billy Joel. It's just like it's just listening to music and just like jamming out and just chilling. Um, and
Everyone there was wiggling,
bobbing and
right?
weaving. Everybody was
They,
bobbing and weaving. Um, and a lot of tie dye, but that's like classic Grateful Dead. But I get the vibe. Like it's like the music goes with the vibe, and people could do that for hours. Now I understand why a lot of drugs were done, like are done with that type of thing,
yeah.
but I honestly like it's just good. It's just good to just like listen to music. I feel like also I started listening to some of their stuff afterwards. Um, but I feel like listening it to live is just that's how you kind of have to do it. Like
Oh
even listening
yeah.
to like a live concert on Spotify is not the same. Like being in the environment surrounded in with the type of people
Yeah.
and listening to that music makes the vibe, and it makes the experience versus just like listening to a track is, to me at least, is not. I just like you don't get that same feeling. You could get that with other bands.
Yeah.
You could get that with other
Definitely.
bands. You get that with other types of music. But specifically for this type of music, I feel like it's very environment focused. So, you know, the
I was gonna say it's a
yeah,
community. It's a community.
the music enhances
You know.
it's the community, and the music is just the thing that, is that kind of that conjoining factor, but it's not, it's like, it's the whole aura is there is it. And just to sit by yourself and listen to it on on a track is not, or whatever, on like a Spotify live concert is just, it's just different. You're just not getting, at least for me, you're not getting that same experience. Like you don't even, I don't think I even
No, not
appreciate
at
it
all.
as well. And I think also the Grateful Dead itself, like you have so many cover bands because the music itself is not difficult in terms of like it's just jamming. So if you could understand that type of music, you know,
It's a
it's
language. It's a
exactly.
language. The jamming is a
Yeah, for
language.
sure. So if you get that, then that's why I feel like there's so many of them versus like other bands, like cover bands. Like there's not that many. There are Beatle cover bands, but there's way more. You hear of Grateful Dead, cover bands than that. And I'm sure in ten and
Grateful Dead is still a cultural. It's still a cultural
yeah,
phenomenon, right? It
you'll
exists
get
like
in 10, 15 years from now we'll get Fish cover bands and all the same. That will be kind of the same thing. So
yeah, yeah. But yeah, well, yeah. So by the way, it happens to be that in the New York, Manhattan, Brooklyn, Westchester, Long Island area, is very, very heavy Grateful Dead cover band, like top cover
Yeah, I'm sure
band,
Brooklyn's like, yeah,
stomping
I'm sure
grounds.
Brooklyn is huge.
And Long Island, Brooklyn and Long Island. And then the Beacon Theater used to be a big place. That's where the Allman Brothers would play, would play
Yeah.
just like, like full weeks out of the year there. Like they'd play like, a couple of weeks at a time every year there. That's also like, and then the Beacon's right there on the Upper West
hmm
Side. I mean, it's a couple
Yeah,
blocks from
it's,
your
it's not that
house,
far from me.
your
Yeah, it's not
apartment.
that far. It's not that far.
Yeah, yeah.
So yeah,
All right, dude, you got to
yeah, I
run.
got to run, but always a pleasure. And y'all see you, God willing, next
Thank you,
week.
brother. We'll do this. We'll do this next week. Me, you,
We'll
Rami.
do it live.
Live episode. It'll be a lot of fun. We'll have a great time. It'll be tremendous. It'll be huge.
I'll see you. I'll talk to you
um,
later. All right.
it'll be the best
All
podcast ever
right.
made. All right,
Talk
brother. I'll
to you
catch you
later.
soon.
Bye.
Thanks for
Of
coming
course.
on.
Bye.
Talk to you. Bye.